than they used to be. And it's interesting to maybe do another study to find out why that is. So there's less of a need in today's blurred roles, and for women to take Virginia Woolf's indifference to the whole sort of political war-making of men, and being the other, of having an ex-patriotic identity that does not reinforce man-made constructions of war justification. Woolf claimed that women could transform society with this indifference, but I don't really see how that's relevant today, and maybe that's something we can pick up in the discussion. And yet, beyond this indifference that Woolf brings, Western feminism, when it comes to women and war, is still stuck between warrior women mimicking belligerent men, or beautiful souls who guard the homestead, or naturally become peace campaigners. So beyond that, I don't really see the conceptual side of it growing very much. But when you actually look at things on the ground, again, picking up from, I'll end up with picking up 2 points the first two speakers raised. First of all, Farah's point that we don't really see a lot at national levels of these grassroots activities. And again, working in Bosnia, I noticed that a lot of the peace-building, state-building activities are very top-down enforced. And it's very elitist, and it's largely driven by men. And I think for that reason, the role of the grassroots activities of women don't really rise to the national levels, because the discourse and the negotiations that are going on are still very gender-specific. When you look at the international community going in and doing top-down peace-building, women are very much in supportive roles there. And similarly, just going back to the Balkan in general, it's interesting, again, just finish off with the military profession. Balkan societies are quite patriarchal, and women do have traditional roles. And when you look at the political aspects of peace building, women aren't relegated to the sidelines. And yet, when I, as a woman, engage the military, somehow they don't see gender. And I find that very interesting. It's such a sanitized environment in the armed forces. So I think I've thrown enough food for thought there, and I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move to our fourth speaker, and it's Kat Callow, who is a trustee of Project Mosaic, author, former correspondent for Reuters in Asia and Europe, and internet entrepreneur. Kat Callow is trustee of Project Mosaic, which is a pro-tolerance educational charity based in the UK. The charity was set up in 2008 in memory of Kat's cousin Jane Fontana, who was one of the 343 firefighters who died on September 11, 2001, while helping to rescue some 28,000 people from the World Trade Towers. Project Mosaic teaches children and young people to be more tolerant of those from a different background. The charity works on a grassroots level to promote interfaith and intercultural tolerance, interethnic good citizenship, and integration of immigrant communities, and to combat group hatred and extremism. Project Mosaic carries out its work by sending successful people from immigrant backgrounds to give inspiring talks to young people in schools and youth clubs. These global citizen talks explore identity, tolerance, and engaged citizenship. And they provide practical tips about career development and getting connected into mainstream society. Kat has also reported on conflict in Afghanistan and Cambodia in the 1980s and traveled extensively as a journalist throughout Asia. Kat later worked as a media executive at Reuters London headquarters, and she is a native New Yorker and a British-American dual national. She has lived in the UK for nearly 20 years. So Kat, we've heard of all the other speakers, so where does your experience fit into our theme?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rahmat, for inviting me, and thank you, Suaad. I feel a bit humbled by being invited to take part on this panel, and because I'm surrounded by experts, and I bow to your expertise and knowledge. I'm a little person doing a very little something, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that story. Rita mentioned that we set up Project Mosaic a year and a half ago in memory of my cousin Dave Fontana. He was a gorgeous guy, a very unusual member of the New York City Fire Department. He was a fine arts student at university and a sculptor. That was his great passion. Very much a Renaissance man. He was so in love with being in the fire department that, believe it or not, he insisted when he and his fiancée were preparing to be married that they get married on 9/11, September 11th, because of course in the States when you dial the fire department, you dial 911. He died on his 8th wedding anniversary. He was on his way home at 8 in the morning, having worked the night shift the night before so he could spend his anniversary with his wife when the call came out. We're just trying to do a little something at Project Mosaic. This is not my day job, it's one of my volunteer night jobs. A year and a half ago when I told my husband I was going to set up this charity, he said, "For goodness sakes, Kat, you have enough volunteer night jobs, you've got too many day jobs, you don't have time to do this." And I said, well, when do we ever have time to do the important things in life? You know, you just squeeze it in. And I think several of the panelists have talked about people kind of squeezing in the important things in life. Rita mentioned that there are four goals that we have at Project Mosaic. One is to promote interfaith and intercultural tolerance. Another is to promote what we call inter-ethnic good citizenship. My accent's a bit different. Maybe he's black and she wears a headscarf. We're all British, and we all have the same rights and responsibilities to be true to British values. That's what we call inter-ethnic good citizenship. We also work to promote integration of immigrant communities. So to ensure that people from my immigrant group, and yours, and yours, and yours, we all have a role and a voice in mainstream society. We also work to combat different types of group hatred and extremism. Rita mentioned the Global Citizen Program. This has been a really fascinating and humbling experience because, to be perfectly honest, all I do is call up different friends and say, will you come give a talk? To young people in a school, to young people at a youth club. Primarily, the audience is young people from a disadvantaged background, often fairly poor, many coming from an immigrant background, and often feeling that they're not part of the group which is the mover and shaker in British society. They're a little bit on the margins. And the global speakers go in and they just talk about two things. They talk about identity, tolerance, and they provide practical tips about job hunting and career development. Really what we are trying to do is something very simple. It's a grassroots movement. It's from the bottom up. We're just trying to start a different kind of conversation. We're trying to change people's thinking. One of the conversations that we have, and I would love to share with you more at a later date about some of the topics that come out in these conversations with the global citizen sitting there. Last week it was my friend Hassan Serdoud. He's British, naturalized British, born in Morocco, Muslim, very successful entrepreneur, talking about his life, what it was like to arrive in the UK over 20 years ago. But one topic that comes up again and again is, are we proud to be immigrants? And I'm very proud to be an immigrant to the UK, and I'm very proud that my great-grandparents were immigrants to the US from Sicily and Ireland in the early 1900s. Where I come from in New York, that's a badge of honor to say I come from an immigrant background. One of the interesting things that has come out in conversations with young people and adults of all ages recently in the UK is that maybe the word immigrant is a little bit loaded in the UK. It's a little bit charged. It's a little bit pejorative, maybe. We're trying to shift that and say, I'm an immigrant, and I'm very proud of my immigrant background. But what we also say to young people is, okay, I have a multiple identity. I'm British and I'm American. I have 2 passports. I'm also of Sicilian-Irish background, so don't mess with me. I've got lots of cousins in Sicily that can sort you out. I am a Roman Catholic. I have lots of different identities. None of these identities diminish my responsibility to be a good British citizen and to celebrate British values. Now, some of my white, Anglican, Oxford, Cambridge educated friends, colleagues at Reuters, they say, oh my gosh, Kat, you know, I'm English, I'm not proud of it. I'm British, I'm not proud of it. And I say to them, then move over. Because the rest of us, particularly people coming from an immigrant background, then we will help define what it means to be British today, what it means to be English today. Okay, what does that mean? What are the values that we're celebrating?